finally finished the new Prince of Persia, and wow, they almost got it. It really had the potential to be so good, and yet there are still some really simple mistakes here that completely ruin the experience. Now, first off, let me qualify this by saying what they did right. The art style in this game is gorgeous. It's kinda gritty, but it's also bright and colorful in a very refreshing way, and it seems like this is what cel-shaded graphics should be like. Also, the wall running gameplay, even though the appeal doesn't really last the entire game, can be kinda fun for a while. And all of the characters in the game are really interesting, except for the prince, oddly enough. The prince, by the way, is not a prince in any sense of the word. He's just some dopey looking douchebag who looks like he walked in off the set of Friends. How you manage to make all these engaging, fascinating characters and yet somehow completely miss the mark on the guy that you're playing as for the entire game, I have no idea. But I'll get back to that later. I also want to point out that this game has one of the most unique final boss battles I've ever seen. It really is quite amazing. But for all the good parts this game has, it also has a number of really noticeable problems, compounded by the fact that the problem areas get copied and repeated over and over again. Now, part of the problem here is that this game wants to hold your hand the whole time. In addition to never dying, you're given a magical compass to use in case you get lost. And at first this seems like a good idea, since the game takes place in a fairly large open-world environment. But the compass is far too specific. It doesn't just tell you where to go, it tells you exactly how to get there too. As a result, this game has no learning curve whatsoever, and it ends up just feeling repetitive. You pull off the same 4 or 5 wall running tricks throughout the entire game, most of the boss fights are exactly the same, the combat isn't satisfying at all, and you spend an absurd amount of time backtracking through the areas to collect what are called light seeds. Now, in regard to the light seeds, what you might not know is that there are a total of 1,001 light seeds throughout the entire game. You are required to collect 540 of them in order to unlock new magic abilities for Elika, the computer-controlled character that follows you around during the game. Yes, just to complete the game, you are going to collect a fuck ton of MacGuffins. And even after you have all the required ones, you're still going to get about 50 more by the end of the game, just by default. I mean, I've played other games where you go around collecting items, and it can be fun, but here it really feels like they're just trying to pad out the game so that it'll last the minimum 10 hours that's required of every new game these days. But if you think about it, if you're just trying to beat the game, that means you're going to run around collecting about 600 random whatsits, and there are still about 400 more that do absolutely nothing. Collecting all the light seeds doesn't unlock any bonus items unless you're playing the PC version, so if you're on a console, they're literally just there so you can get trophies or achievements. I don't know, maybe that's important to you, but for me, it just got boring. Another problem I had was with the dialogue. You see, during certain parts of the game, you will be prompted to have the characters talk to each other. Now, it's entirely optional, but I'm a nerd who likes to follow the story of the game that I'm playing, so of course, whenever the dialogue indicator came up, I'd stop and press the button because I didn't want to miss anything that might be interesting or important. The thing is, there were numerous times when I'd come up to like a puzzle, and the talk button would come up like 10 times. And the first time they'll talk about how the puzzle works, and Elika will say something like, "You need to turn that crank over there." Okay, fine. But immediately afterward, it'll prompt you again, and the prince will say, "Oh, I guess I'll turn this crank." And then it'll prompt you 3 more times with the prince going, "Okay, I can do this, I can do this." And at this point, I'm just screaming, "Fine, let me fucking do it already! Stop telling me that there's more dialogue when you literally don't have anything helpful to say!" And that's just one example, but there are a number of times where the dialogue will not only contribute nothing to the story, but it will be annoyingly counterproductive. Literally, the only thing it does is keep you from making progress. But for all my bitching about this other stuff, I might have been able to let it go if not for one thing, and that's the ending. Okay,
Mega spoiler alert.
everything about the ending pissed me off, and I'm going to talk about it. So if you don't want the ending spoiled, stop the video now. But basically, the reason the ending pisses me off is because everything you do is absolutely pointless. Let me try and explain. See, throughout the game, the prince and Elika are trying to stop this dark god Ahriman from corrupting the land and unleashing his evil demon army on the planet. So you spend 10 hours in the game healing the land so that you can seal this evil god away and save everyone. But to do that, Elika needs to sacrifice herself. and she does it without any hesitation, and she spent the entire game lecturing the prince on just how important it is to stop this great evil from being unleashed. Now keep in mind, there's a point during this whole event where the game actually gives you control, and you have to carry Elika's body out of the temple while the credits start rolling. Now, I don't even know how to describe it, but there was a feeling that I have never experienced in a game before. And if they had simply ended it there, it would have been brilliant. But then the prince decides that he misses her and he really wants a chance to get laid, so in a couple of minutes he goes around and completely undoes everything you've been trying to do up to that point and brings back the evil god so that Elika can come back to life. And then, while this demon is destroying everything, the prince just walks off carrying Elika without any kind of reaction at all. And Elika just looks up at him and goes, "Why?" And I'm sitting here watching the whole thing going, yeah, why? I mean, it's one thing if the bad guy wins, but fucking why? Do you really expect me to believe, as morally ambiguous as they try to make the prince out to be, that he's really going to spend that much time trying to fix everything, and then just, out of the blue, he's just going to blink and go, well, I changed my mind. I guess I'm gonna go ruin everything now. And of all the things, he did it for a girl. A girl who willingly sacrificed herself specifically to avoid the level of bullshit stupidity that our hero demonstrates. I mean, yeah, the whole point of everything this whole time was to stop this guy, but you know what? Screw it. I just want some poon. I mean, even if you look at this like it's some great romantic or noble gesture, wasn't there any way it could have been done better? Wasn't there any way the prince could have expressed his feelings without bringing death and destruction upon the planet, without reversing everything he'd done up to that point and rendering the entire game meaningless, and without forcing us to fork out another $10 just to download the epilogue and find out what really happens? Oh, and another spoiler, the epilogue also accomplishes exactly nothing. You face off against Armin again, and you literally just run away and go, well, he's too strong, we can't beat him, the end! You know, at this point, I don't even care. I mean, what's the point of having such a long, talk-heavy story for this game if you're just going to pull the ending out of your ass? In fact, why did Elika need to come back at the end? I mean, sure, she's the most likable character, but that's part of what gives her death so much impact. And I know they're trying to set up a sequel, obviously, but why did this game have to end at such a random-ass, unsatisfying moment that doesn't accomplish anything? If you're going to bring Elika back, why not wait for the sequel? Then you could have expanded on the story even more by explaining why she was there, but instead, it ends up being completely useless and self-defeating. Despite the artistic achievement here, I'm just not looking forward to any more games in this part of the series.